The first time I saw my wife's panties in another man's car, I thought I was losing my mind. I'm Hank Dorsey, 39 years old, and I fix things for a living. Broken pipes, squeaky doors, marriages that leak trust like a busted radiator. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as they say. Standing there in the parking lot of Romano's Steakhouse, staring through the passenger window of a silver Porsche at a pair of black lace underwear I'd bought Lisa for our anniversary, I felt something crack inside my chest, like old timber under much weight. The Porsche belonged to William Pumper Marston, Lisa's boss at Kellerman and Associates. Pumper got his nickname in college for obvious reasons, and he'd never let anyone forget it. At 42, he still wore his hair slicked back like some Wall Street shark, drove cars that cost more than most people's houses, and had the kind of smile that made you want to count your fingers after shaking his hand. Lisa was a paralegal there, working her way up to partner track. Smart as a whip and twice as sharp, she could argue the paint off a barn door. We'd been married 8 years, and lately, those years felt like decades. She'd been working late, coming home smelling like expensive cologne instead of law books, and treating me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. I backed away from the Porsche, my heart hammering against my ribs. The parking lot spun around me like I'd been sucker punched. Those weren't just any panties. They were the ones with the little bow on the front that Lisa said made her feel sophisticated. I'd saved up 3 weeks of overtime to buy them from that fancy boutique downtown. Hank? Jesus, you look like you've seen a ghost. I turned around to find Tony Ricci walking toward me, concern creasing his weathered face. Tony owned Ricci's Bar and Grill down on Maple Street, and he'd been my best friend since high school. Short, stocky, with hands like ham hocks and a heart bigger than his beer gut. Tony was the kind of guy who'd give you the shirt off his back and then buy you a drink to celebrate. I'm fine, I lied, shoving my hands deep in my jacket pockets. Just thought I saw something. Tony followed my gaze to the Porsche, then back to me. His dark eyes narrowed. That's Marston's car, isn't it? Your wife's boss? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Want to tell me what's got you looking like someone pissed in your cornflakes? Before I could answer, the restaurant's front door opened with a burst of warm air and laughter. Lisa emerged first, her auburn hair catching the streetlight like spun copper. She was wearing the red dress I'd complimented that morning, but now it seemed different somehow, like it had been chosen for someone else's eyes. Behind her came Pumper, his hand resting on the small of her back in a way that made my stomach turn to ice. They were laughing about something, heads close together, completely oblivious to the world around them. Lisa threw back her head, and I heard her genuine laugh, the one she used to save for me. The sound hit me like a physical blow. Oh shit, Tony muttered under his breath. I watched my wife of 8 years lean into another man's touch, watched her smile at him the way she used to smile at me, watched her let him open the passenger door of his Porsche like she belonged there. The black lace panties were still visible on the seat, and Lisa didn't even glance at them as she settled in, like they belonged there too. The Porsche purred to life and pulled out of the parking lot, leaving me standing there with Tony, breathing in exhaust fumes and the bitter taste of betrayal. Hank, don't, I said quietly. Just don't. But Tony being Tony, he didn't listen. How long have you suspected? I thought about it, really thought about it. The late nights that had become routine, the way Lisa flinched when I touched her, like my hands were dirty, the expensive perfume I couldn't afford, the new lingerie that never seemed to be for my benefit. The phone calls she took in the other room, speaking in hushed tones that cut off abruptly when I entered. Couple months, maybe, I admitted. But seeing it, that's different. Tony clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder. Come on, let's get you a drink. Hell, let's get you several drinks. We walked toward his bar in silence, our footsteps echoing off the empty sidewalk. The October air was sharp with the promise of winter, and I pulled my jacket tighter around me. Funny how quickly the world could change. This morning, I'd been a married man with problems. Tonight, I was something else entirely. Ricci's was busy for a Tuesday night. The usual crowd of regulars nursed beers and watched the game on the big screen, their voices mixing with the clink of glasses and the crack of pool balls from the back room. It was the kind of place where everybody knew everybody, and secrets lasted about as long as foam on a beer. Tony poured me a whiskey, the good stuff, not the rail liquor he served most customers. I knocked it back and gestured for another. "Easy there, cowboy," Tony said, but he poured anyway. "So what are you going to do about it?" That was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? What does a guy do when he discovers his wife is cheating with her boss? Confrontation seemed pointless. I'd seen the way she looked at him, the way she'd laughed. This wasn't some drunken mistake or moment of weakness. This was something else, something deliberate and ongoing. "I don't know," I said, staring into the amber liquid. Part of me wants to march over there and beat the hell out of him. And the other part? I took a sip this time, letting the whiskey burn away some of the numbness. The other part wants to know how long this has been going on. What else I don't know. Whether there's anything left of my marriage worth saving. Tony wiped down the bar with mechanical precision, a sure sign he was thinking hard. "You know what your problem is, Hank? You're too nice. Always have been. You treat people with respect. You work hard. You keep your word. But some people see that as weakness. Lisa's not some people. She's my wife. Is she, though?" The question hung in the air between us like smoke. When's the last time she acted like it? I couldn't answer that. The truth was, Lisa had been pulling away for months, maybe longer. Our conversations had become perfunctory exchanges about schedules and bills. Our bedroom had turned into a cold, neutral zone where we slept on opposite sides of the bed like strangers sharing a hotel room. I'd told myself it was work stress, that things would get better when her caseload lightened up. But work stress doesn't buy new lingerie for other men. "I need to know for sure," I said finally. "Before I do anything stupid, I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with." Tony nodded slowly. "My cousin Sal does security for half the buildings downtown, including the one where your wife works. If you want to know something, Sal's your guy." "I don't want to spy on her." "No, you want to spy on him. Big difference." I laughed despite myself, a bitter sound that had nothing to do with humor. "When did my life turn into a bad detective movie?" "About the time your wife started starring in her own romantic comedy with another guy." The whiskey was starting to work its magic, blunting the sharp edges of anger and hurt. But underneath the artificial calm, something else was growing, something cold and patient and calculating. I'd spent my whole adult life being the good guy, the reliable husband, the man who fixed other people's problems while his own world fell apart. Maybe it was time to try a different approach. "Set up a meeting with Sal," I said, finishing my drink. "But Tony?" "This stays between us. Goes without saying." I stood up, fishing money out of my wallet. The bar felt different now, like I was seeing it through new eyes. These people, Tony, the regulars, the guys shooting pool in the back, they were my real world. The world where a man's word meant something, where loyalty wasn't a negotiable commodity, where you didn't screw over the people who trusted you. Lisa had chosen a different world. Now she was going to learn what that choice cost. The next morning, Lisa was already gone when I woke up. No note, no goodbye kiss, just the lingering scent of that expensive perfume and a coffee cup in the sink with lipstick on the rim. Lipstick she definitely hadn't been wearing when she left the house yesterday morning. I sat at our kitchen table, staring at that cup like it might reveal its secrets, when my phone buzzed. Text message from Lisa. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." It was 7:30 in the morning. She was already planning her evening with Pumper before most people had their first cup of coffee. I forwarded the message to Tony with a simple note. "Set up that meeting." His reply came back within minutes. "Sal's free for lunch." Mario's Pizza, on 5th Street, noon. The morning dragged by like a root canal. I had a job replacing kitchen cabinets for the Hendersons, an elderly couple who'd been married 47 years and still held hands while watching TV. Mrs. Henderson made me coffee and asked about Lisa, and I found myself lying through my teeth about how well she was doing at work, how proud I was of her dedication. The lies tasted like sawdust. Sal Ricci was Tony's opposite in every way that mattered. Where Tony was short and stocky, Sal was tall and lean. Where Tony was loud and gregarious, Sal spoke in whispers and watched everything with the intensity of a hawk studying field mice. He worked security for Kellerman and Associates, among others, and had the kind of eyes that didn't miss much. We met at Mario's, a hole-in-the-wall pizza joint that served the best meatball subs in the city and minded its own business. Sal was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with his back to the wall and a clear view of the door. "Tony says you need information," he said without preamble, not bothering with pleasantries. "About William Marston and my wife." Sal nodded like this was the most natural request in the world. "How much do you want to know?" "Everything." He studied me for a long moment, probably trying to decide if I was the type to do something stupid with whatever he told me. Finally, he seemed to reach a conclusion. "They've been meeting regularly for about 6 months, always the same pattern, late nights at the office, then dinner somewhere expensive, then the Marriott downtown, room 1247. Marston keeps it on permanent reserve. 6 months. While I'd been worrying about our mortgage payment and fixing the leak in our bathroom, my wife had been playing house with another man in a hotel room that probably cost more per night than I made in a week. How regular is regular? Twice a week? Sometimes 3 times? Tuesday and Thursday are guaranteed. Sometimes Friday if his wife's out of town. His wife. Jesus, I'd forgotten Pumper was married. Some society princess named Claudia who organized charity galas and looked down her nose at people like me. Did she know? Was she sitting at home, clueless, while her husband screwed around with my wife? "There's more," Sal continued, his voice dropping even lower. "Last week I overheard them talking about taking a trip together. Somewhere tropical. Marston was bragging about how he'd convinced his wife he needed to attend a conference in Miami, but really they were planning to spend a week at some resort. When? Next month. November 15th through 22nd. Our wedding anniversary was November 20th. Lisa was planning to spend it in paradise with another man. I felt something snap inside me, like a cable under too much tension finally giving way. All the careful control I'd been maintaining, all the rational thoughts about gathering information and making smart decisions, gone. In their place was a cold, crystalline rage that made everything sharp and clear. "I need photos," I heard myself say. Sal raised an eyebrow. "That's going to cost extra." "How much?" $500. Cash. It was money we didn't have, money that should have gone toward the new water heater or Lisa's student loan payments. But what was the point of worrying about our financial future when there might not be an hour anymore? Deal. But I want everything. Photos, recordings if you can manage it, documentation of every meeting. Give me a week. We shook hands, and I walked out of Mario's feeling like a different person. The Hank Dorsey who'd walked in was still hoping this was all some terrible misunderstanding. The one who walked out knew better. That evening, I decided to do a little reconnaissance of my own. Lisa's text had said she was working late, so at 8 o'clock I drove downtown and parked across the street from Kellerman and Associates. The building was mostly dark except for a few scattered windows, including one on the 7th floor where Lisa's office was located. I waited and waited. At 9:15, the light in her office went out. 5 minutes later, Lisa emerged from the building's front entrance, but she wasn't alone. Pumper was with her, his hand on her back in that possessive way I'd seen the night before. They walked to his Porsche, and I followed at a distance as they drove to Chez Laurent, the most expensive French restaurant in the city. I'd taken Lisa there for our 5th anniversary, and we'd split an entree because the prices were so outrageous. Now she was sitting across from another man, laughing at his jokes, letting him order wine that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. I sat in my truck across the street, watching through the restaurant's large windows as my wife played a role I didn't recognize. This wasn't the Lisa who complained about spending $12 on a bottle of wine at the grocery store. This wasn't the woman who'd insisted we couldn't afford to go on vacation last year. This was someone else entirely, someone who belonged in Pumper's world of expensive suits and casual extravagance. They finished dinner around 10:30 and drove to the Marriott. I didn't follow them inside. I didn't need to see room 1247 to know what was happening there. Instead, I drove home to our empty house and sat in the dark, thinking. Lisa came home at midnight, moving quietly through the house like she thought I was asleep. She showered, washing off the evidence, I supposed, and slipped into bed beside me, careful not to wake me up. I lay there listening to her breathe, this woman I'd loved for 8 years, this stranger who shared my bed and my name, but not my life. Tomorrow she'd wake up and kiss me goodbye and tell me she loved me, and it would all be lies. She'd been lying for 6 months, maybe longer, and I'd been too trusting or too stupid to see it. But I saw it now, and seeing it changed everything. The next morning, Lisa was unusually affectionate. She made me breakfast, something she hadn't done in months, and kissed me goodbye with what seemed like genuine warmth. Guilt, probably. Or maybe she was just in a good mood after her night with Pumper. "I love you," she said, standing in the doorway in her business suit, looking every inch the successful professional woman. "I love you too," I replied automatically, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. After she left, I called in sick to work and spent the day doing something I'd never done before. I searched through my wife's belongings like a detective looking for evidence. And I found it. Hidden in the back of her jewelry box was a credit card I'd never seen before. The statements, tucked behind our marriage certificate in her filing cabinet, told a story of expensive dinners, hotel charges, purchases at Victoria's Secret and high-end boutiques. All of it dating back 8 months. 8 months. This had been going on even longer than Sal had thought. But the real kicker was at the bottom of the stack, a receipt from a jewelry store downtown. $1,500 for a man's Rolex watch, purchased just last week. Our anniversary was still a month away, and Lisa had never spent that kind of money on a gift for me in our entire marriage. I sat on our bedroom floor, surrounded by evidence of my wife's betrayal, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The hurt was still there, sharp and constant, but it was being joined by something else, something colder and more purposeful. Lisa had made her choice. She'd chosen Pumper's world over ours, chosen expensive lies over simple truths, chosen to throw away 8 years of marriage for whatever thrill she was getting from her affair. Fine. But choices had consequences, and it was time for my wife to learn what hers were going to cost her. I gathered up all the evidence and put it back exactly where I'd found it. Then I called Tony. "How's that meeting with Sal go?" he asked. "Productive. Listen, I need a favor. You still know people at the gym downtown?" "Yeah. Why?" "I think it's time I got back in shape." Sal delivered the photos 3 days later, and they were everything I'd hoped for and dreaded. Crystal clear images of my wife and her boss holding hands over dinner, kissing in the parking lot, entering and leaving the Marriott together. In one particularly damning shot, Lisa was wearing the diamond earrings I'd given her for Christmas, but she was taking them off and putting them in her purse before going into the hotel, like she didn't want Pumper to see another man's gifts. That detail hit me harder than all the rest combined. "There's more," Sal said, sliding an envelope across Tony's bar. "Audio recordings from their dinner conversations. You're not going to like what you hear." He was right. I listened to the recordings that night in my truck, parked in the empty lot behind Tony's bar, and each word was like a knife between the ribs. "Hank's so predictable," Lisa's voice came through the tiny speaker, tinged with the kind of casual cruelty that takes practice to perfect. "He comes home, drinks his cheap beer, watches his sports, and thinks that's enough. God, Bill. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to a piece of furniture. Pumper's laughter was worse than her words. Well, furniture serves a purpose. What purpose does he serve? He fixes things around the house, I suppose. And he's reliable with the bills. But Jesus, the man has no ambition, no drive. He's perfectly content being a handyman for the rest of his life. What did you ever see in him? A pause. Then, I thought I could change him. Make him want more. But some people are just limited. They can't see beyond their little world. Unlike us. Unlike us. I could hear the smile in her voice. We understand that life is about taking what you want, not settling for what you're given. The recording went on, but I'd heard enough. I sat in that dark parking lot, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, and felt 8 years of marriage crumble into dust. Limited. That's what she thought of me. A piece of furniture with no ambition, no drive, no vision beyond my little world. The woman I'd loved, supported, and trusted thought I was beneath her, a stepping stone she'd outgrown. But Lisa had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. See, there was something my wife didn't know, something I'd never told her because it had never seemed important. Before I became a handyman, before I met Lisa, I'd done something else with my life. Something that required quite a bit more ambition and drive than she gave me credit for. I'd gone to law school, not Harvard or Yale, nothing that fancy, just State University, working nights and weekends to pay my way through. I'd even passed the bar exam, though I'd never practiced. The construction industry had been booming when I graduated, and I'd made more money swinging a hammer than I could have made chasing ambulances. Besides, I'd liked working with my hands, liked building things instead of tearing them down, but I'd kept my license current, just in case. Paid the fees, took the continuing education courses, stayed up to date on changes in the law. Old habits, I suppose. Lisa thought I was limited. She was about to discover just how wrong she could be. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to a private investigator named Janet Morrison, a former cop who specialized in divorce cases. The second was to my old law school roommate, Mike Patterson, who'd built a successful practice in family law. "Hank Dorsey," Mike said when I identified myself. "Jesus, it's been, 15 years? How the hell are you?" "I've been better." "Mike, I need some advice. Hypothetically speaking, what's the best way to handle a divorce when your spouse has been having an affair and hiding assets?" There was a pause. "Hypothetically?" "Hypothetically. Well, hypothetically, you'd want to document everything before you make any moves. Financial records, evidence of the affair, proof of any marital assets being used to fund the relationship. Then you'd file for divorce on grounds of adultery and go for the throat in terms of asset division. And if the cheating spouse doesn't know their partner has legal training?" Mike's chuckle was knowing. "Then they're in for a very unpleasant surprise." "Hank, please tell me you're not handling this yourself." "I'm just gathering information right now." "Uh-huh. Look, if this moves beyond hypothetical, call me. I've seen too many people try to represent themselves in divorce court, and it never ends well." But Mike was wrong about one thing. This wasn't going to be about divorce court, at least not initially. Lisa wanted to play games? Fine. I'd show her what games looked like when the other player knew the rules. That evening, Lisa came home earlier than usual, around 7 o'clock. She seemed nervous, fidgety, like she had something on her mind. "Hank, we need to talk," she said, finding me in the garage where I was organizing my tools. Here it comes, I thought. She's going to ask for a divorce. Probably thinks she'll catch me off guard, get me to agree to something stupid before I have time to think about it. "Sure," I said, not looking up from my toolbox. "What's on your mind?" "I think we should consider marriage counseling." That I hadn't expected. I turned to face her, studying her expression. She looked guilty but determined, like someone who'd rehearsed this conversation. "Marriage counseling? We've been growing apart, Hank. You have to see that. We barely talk anymore. We don't do things together. I just think we need help figuring out how to reconnect. It was a masterful performance. If I hadn't known about Pumper, hadn't heard her calling me a piece of furniture, I might have been touched by her apparent desire to save our marriage. Is there someone specific you had in mind? I asked. Dr. Sarah Winters. She's supposed to be excellent with couples therapy. I nodded thoughtfully, like I was considering it. Okay, set up an appointment. Lisa's relief was visible. Really? You'll do it? If you think it'll help? I turned back to my tools. But Lisa? If we're going to do this, we need to be completely honest with each other. No secrets, no holding back. Marriage counseling only works if both people are committed to the truth. Of course, she said quickly. Absolutely. Complete honesty. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with one of my saws. After she left, I sat in the garage and thought about what she was really doing. Marriage counseling was perfect cover for her affair. It showed she was trying to save the marriage while giving her a reason to discuss our problems with a neutral third party. She could paint me as the distant, unambitious husband while positioning herself as the long-suffering wife who just wanted to reconnect. But two could play that game. I called Janet Morrison and filled her in on the latest development. She's setting up an alibi, Janet said without hesitation. Classic cheater behavior. She wants to be able to say she tried everything to save the marriage before she filed for divorce. How long do these things usually take? Depends on what she's planning. If I had to guess, she'll give it 2 or 3 months, then claim the counseling isn't working and that you're not willing to change. Then she'll file, and her lawyer will argue that she made every effort to reconcile. What if I played along? Really committed to the counseling, made it look like I was the one trying to save the marriage? Janet was quiet for a moment. That's actually not a bad strategy, but it would require incredible self-control. You'd have to sit in those sessions, listen to her lie about your marriage, and not reveal that you know about the affair. I can do that. Are you sure? Because if you lose your temper even once, if you let slip that you know what she's been doing, you'll lose any advantage you might have. I thought about the recordings, about Lisa's casual cruelty, about the Rolex she'd bought for another man with money from our joint account. I'm sure. The first counseling session was scheduled for the following Thursday. Lisa made a point of telling me how hopeful she was, how much she wanted this to work, how committed she was to saving our marriage. She even suggested we go out to dinner afterward to reconnect. What she didn't know was that Thursday was one of her regular nights with Pumper. I'd be very interested to see how she planned to handle that conflict. As it turned out, I didn't have to wait long to find out. On Tuesday, Lisa informed me that she'd had to reschedule our counseling appointment. Something came up at work, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. A big case that Bill needs my help with. We'll have to work late Thursday night. That's too bad, I said. I was looking forward to it. I know, honey. I'm disappointed too, but this case is really important for my career. Her career. Right. When did you reschedule for? Next Tuesday. I hope that's okay. It was perfect, actually. It gave me another week to prepare, another week to document her lies, another week to set up what was going to be the most satisfying conversation of my life. Because Lisa was right about one thing. We did need to have complete honesty in our marriage. She just wasn't going to like what the truth looked like. The marriage counseling session was everything I'd expected, and worse. Dr. Sarah Winters was a soft-spoken woman in her 50s who specialized in communication and reconnection, and she bought Lisa's performance completely. I feel like we're living parallel lives, Lisa said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Hank comes home from work, and it's like he's not really there. He doesn't ask about my day, doesn't share what's happening in his life. I've tried to engage him, but he just shuts down. I sat there, nodding thoughtfully, playing the role of the emotionally distant husband who was finally ready to open up. I suppose I have been withdrawn, I said. Work's been stressful, and I guess I brought that home with me. Doctor. Winters leaned forward. Hank, when you say work has been stressful, can you be more specific? Help Lisa understand what you're going through. Well, the construction industry is unpredictable. Some weeks I have more work than I can handle. Other weeks I'm scrambling to find jobs. I worry about money, about whether I'm providing enough for us. I looked at Lisa with what I hoped was convincing sincerity. I guess I didn't want to burden you with those worries. Lisa reached over and took my hand. But that's what marriage is about, honey. Sharing the burdens. The woman was good. I had to give her that. If I hadn't known she was planning to leave me for another man, I might have believed she actually cared. Lisa, Dr. Winters said, what would you like to see change in your relationship? I want us to be partners again. Real partners. I want to feel like Hank and I are building something together, not just existing in the same space. And what does that look like to you? Lisa was quiet for a moment, like she was choosing her words carefully. I want us to dream together. To have goals beyond just paying the bills. I want to feel like we're both invested in creating a future. It was a beautiful sentiment and complete bullshit. Lisa's idea of creating a future involved expensive hotels and other women's husbands. That's very insightful, Dr. Winters said. Hank, how do you respond to that? I think Lisa's right. I have been focused on just getting by instead of thinking bigger. I squeezed my wife's hand. Maybe it's time I started being more ambitious. The session continued for another 30 minutes, with Dr. Winters giving us homework assignments about communication and goal setting. Lisa seemed pleased with how it had gone, chatting animatedly about the process as we walked to our cars. I really think this is going to help, she said, kissing me goodbye. I'm proud of you for being so open to it. I want our marriage to work, Lisa. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. She smiled, and for just a moment, I saw a flicker of something that might have been guilt. But it was gone so quickly, I might have imagined it. That night, while Lisa was supposedly working late on Pumper's important case, I met with Janet Morrison to review the evidence we'd gathered. You've got enough for a slam-dunk divorce, she said, spreading photos across her desk. Adultery, misuse of marital assets, deception. Any judge would award you a significant portion of the marital property. What about her pension? Her 401k? Those would be considered marital assets too, subject to division. Depending on how vindictive you want to get, you could probably walk away with more than half of everything. I studied the photos of my wife with another man, feeling that familiar cold anger settle in my chest. How vindictive can we get? Janet raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? I want her to lose everything that matters to her. Her job, her reputation, her financial security. I want Pumper to lose everything too. Hank, I understand you're angry. This isn't about anger. This is about consequences. Lisa made a choice to destroy our marriage, to steal from our joint accounts, to lie to my face for months. She thinks I'm too limited, too stupid to fight back. I want to show her exactly how wrong she is. Janet was quiet for a long moment. There are ways to make their affair public. Pumper's wife might be very interested in these photos. And if Lisa's law firm has a morality clause in their employment contracts, find out. Hank, once you start down this road, there's no going back. Are you sure this is what you want? I thought about Lisa's voice on those recordings, the casual contempt, the way she'd laughed when Pumper mocked me. I thought about the Rolex she'd bought him with our money, about the hotel room where she was probably lying right now, planning her future with another man. I'm sure. The next few weeks fell into a routine. Lisa and I attended counseling sessions where she performed the role of the devoted wife trying to save her marriage, while secretly continuing her affair with Pumper. I played the part of the reformed husband, eager to change and grow, while methodically documenting every lie she told. Dr. Winters seemed pleased with our progress. You're both showing real commitment to this process, she said during our fourth session. Hank, I've noticed a significant change in your engagement level. Lisa was right, I said. I was shutting down, not communicating. But I'm learning that marriage requires constant work. And Lisa, you seem more optimistic about the relationship. Lisa smiled. I feel like I'm finally getting my husband back. It was an Academy Award-worthy performance, made even more impressive by the fact that she'd spent the previous night in room 1247 of the Marriott with another man. But the real test came during our 6th session, when Dr. Winters asked us to talk about our long-term goals. What do you see for yourselves 5 years from now? She asked. Lisa went first. I see us in a bigger house, maybe starting a family. I see Hank expanding his business, maybe hiring employees. I see us traveling together, experiencing new things. That sounds wonderful. Hank? I pretended to think about it. I want to be the kind of husband Lisa deserves. Someone who challenges her, who matches her ambition. I've been thinking about going back to school, maybe getting a degree in business management. Lisa's eyes widened slightly. This wasn't part of her script. That's a significant commitment, Doctor, Winters said. What's driving this decision? Lisa made me realize that I've been coasting, playing it safe instead of taking risks. But the biggest risk is losing her because I was too afraid to grow. I could see Lisa processing this, trying to figure out how it fit into her plans. A husband who was actively working to improve himself was harder to paint as the villain in their marriage. How do you feel about Hank's decision to pursue further education? Dr. Winters asked her. I'm surprised, but pleased. I think it shows real commitment to our future. But I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. This complicated things for her. How could she claim the marriage was hopeless if I was actively working to address her complaints? After the session, Lisa was unusually quiet during the drive home. You really want to go back to school? She finally asked. I've been thinking about it for a while. This counseling has helped me see that I need to be more proactive about our future. It would be expensive and time-consuming. Are you saying you don't support it? No, of course not. I just want to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. What would be the wrong reasons? She was quiet for a moment. I don't want you to change who you are just to make me happy. The irony was breathtaking. The woman who'd been calling me limited and unambitious was now worried I might change too much. I'm not changing who I am, Lisa. I'm becoming who I should have been all along. That night, she didn't go out. Instead, she spent the evening on her phone, texting furiously. I could only imagine the conversation she was having with Pumper, trying to explain why her stupid husband was suddenly showing signs of ambition. But it was too late for damage control. The wheels were already in motion, and Lisa was about to discover that some changes can't be managed or controlled. The next morning, I made a phone call that would change everything. Mike? It's Hank Dorsey. Remember that hypothetical divorce we discussed? It's not hypothetical anymore. Anymore.